So, real quick, when the stream starts, we have John Hammond way over there in the red, and then we got Julian over here. So John, cybersecurity expert, web dev. Julian, IT expert, cybersecurity expert, and then I don't know if you guys know who I am, but I guess I occasionally make videos on this channel.
Who are you, Josh?
Yeah. So we're just gonna do a little Q&A. If you got questions about IT, I'm not your man. That would be this dude, Mr. Julian here, and then cybersecurity, we got John Hammond over there. Hardik, what's up, man? How's it going? You guys got chat up, right? You can read the questions too?
I'm trying to track it down. Where's it at? I don't need a link. I'm not good with computers.
Just refresh my page. You'll see it. Malik, what's up? Juan Carlos, how's it going?
The other day now.
True.
Roshan, what's up? How are you guys? So, again, I'll just repeat. What is web security? I'll let you guys answer that.
So many people wonder, what is web security? That's a super huge question, and it's awesome. I'd like to think, okay, am I going to answer the question for real? We're doing it for realsies?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got a website, right? And it has a lot of inputs, right? Between either how people log in, how they authenticate, how they traverse from page to page. So you can be taking advantage of their user sessions or taking advantage of maybe local file inclusion or remote file inclusion. There's just tons of attacks that you might be.
Let's go a little hard.
Yeah,
let's go high level. Basically, as a coder, you create a website and you have an intended way the website works. But because of the way the underlying language works, coding, there might be things that people can do that are inadvertent, that are malicious in nature. So let's say you have like a form, like you type something in. Well, if you accidentally put something like really well crafted, you can exploit that form and then the underlying computer. And let's say you also like process credit card information on that website. Maybe they can go into your SQL backend and actually steal all that information. That kind of
Fine.
yeah. All right.
Is it worth it to obfuscate my JavaScript code?
Security by obscurity is not a valid option, but possibly.
Yeah. I'm trying to throw stuff in your Discord server, Josh.
Does cybersecurity, web security follow the principle as becoming web dev? I think it's something that you should learn at the same time. Like after you learn to code, you should learn to do secure coding, and being able to like really understand and have secure code is a skill. I got into cybersecurity back in probably 2015.
Yeah, that's fair.
So like 4 years now. I did a little bit of IT as well, running like enterprise networks and stuff, a lot of servers and such. Kind of tier 3, tier 4 help desk.
So one question is there more money in web dev or as network engineer? Network engineer is probably super. You probably get paid. Depends on which piece of web dev you do. You full stack, or you doing front end, back end, or like I would guess network engineering makes more. What do you think?
Personally, I think network engineering makes more.
Yeah, it's like mid 6 figures.
Yeah.
Mid 6 figures, as in like halfway to a million mid 6 figures?
Oh, no, like mid 150.
Oh, okay.
Good catch.
Are you college or self-taught? I think Julian's he's getting a master's degree. John over there, I don't know what he does. I never asked in our interview, John. That was a dumb question.
College, but it didn't do anything to me. It didn't help. College was kind of a joke.
All of cyber and IT is self-taught.
Yeah.
I have a background in like electrical engineering, so like actually like building circuits and doing like radio frequency stuff, but nothing in IT or cybersecurity.
Yeah, I studied electrical engineering, but it's not at all cybersecurity, computer science stuff. So everything I've done, you'll find that everything that you go through security is self-taught. So that's where it's really come from.
Most of the best people in the profession are self-taught because they end up having a passion for it. Whereas some people who go through like formal like programs, they can talk the talk, but they're not like really passionate about it. And they end up in like mid-level management jobs with no skills, but can like, you know, pretend to be all important because they got taught by a professor.
So what are some different...
Not that long, it's a waste of time either. I mean, it definitely like, if you're not somebody who's intrinsically motivated, it can like make you like stay focused and attentive and actually follow through, but it's not for everyone.
What are some good... Well, what are some different types of attacks that a web dev should know? Just common, like, I'm sure you got CSRF, right? And then the other one, which is injection. I forget what that one is.
SQL injection, SQL injection.
No, there was another one. There was a cross-site scripting, and then there was one type of injection.
Cross-site request forgery.
That one, yeah.
That was the CSRF you were thinking of, yeah. There's remote file inclusion, there's local file inclusion, there's server-side request forgery, there's cross-site request forgery. There's tons. It's a big field, and that's like the website of it is only a corner, you know?
So, depend for at Sky Dotel, CCNA, so your Cisco Certified Network Administrator, I believe that's what that stands for. You could probably, depends on like what your background is. I know people who've like studied real hard for like 2 weeks and been able to pass it, but it depends on your prior knowledge. Play with things like Cisco Packet Tracer, really get familiar with like, you know, all the standards, be able to like really talk to everything, and study how the test is set up, like take practice exams, like just, you know, like what the questions are looking for, and then you should be fine.
So, this is a question I want to know, but for the people here that are, I guess, since your viewers are here and my viewers are here, for my viewers, John, give them like a simplified roadmap for web dev to cybersecurity if they want to know. And I know like there's like Pico CTFs, but like, is there like a specific one that you've already done that would be a good starting point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the web dev portion is the foundation for it, because if you don't know how to make it to begin with, like you don't know how to actually build it and create, like literally to make it, you won't know how to break it, or you won't understand why this certain input or what you've just done will actually have the effect that it has. So I think, yeah, no PHP, right? I mean, that's just server-side stuff that's going to be where a lot of the vulnerabilities come from. Obviously, JavaScript is going to be in there. Node, a lot more when you're looking at the desktop stuff. I haven't dabbled as much in Angular and React and Vue probably as your site has, because on the security side, no one has. I don't think there hasn't been a lot of people that have poked at that yet, that have started to piece that apart. So PHP and JavaScript, and I think that is going to be the starting board, the foundation. And if you want to just break it apart and do those malicious cybersecurity hacking things, NATAS, NATAS, is the war game from Over the Wire that specifically focuses on these are the different kinds of attacks that you can do. And I do have a video series on that. I'm still working through some of it. But Hack the Site is another thing. HackTheSite.org is another one. There's DVWA, there's WebGo, there's tons of resources. But the one that I would pinpoint and the one that I would present is NATAS from Over the Wire.
And if you're just learning to get into like basic Linux fundamentals and IT fundamentals, Bandit on Over the Wire is also really good.
So, got a question from Kyle. He's my guy, and he's always talking about IT stuff that I have no idea, and you're the perfect guy to ask. So, Kyle says, if you want to break into cybersecurity, is CCNA Secure Plus enough to break into the field? CEH prereq is 2 years. I don't even know what those stand for, what those mean. Please take over. Kyle, that's for you.
So, sorry, John.
No, you take this one. You're more qualified than I am.
So, from the hiring perspective, Sec Plus, CEH, CCNA, those are exactly what recruiters are looking for on LinkedIn. And that's like your basic thing that if you want to get hired doing this stuff, that is what the bar is. So CEH is Certified Ethical Hacker. I lost what I was saying. Security Plus and A Plus, I think they're offered by CompTIA as the company. They're certification exams that have a bunch of like IT fundamentals, networking fundamentals, basic computer and security fundamentals. Other things like a CISP, you need 5 years of experience, but you can get the CISP practitioner, and that's a big one if you want to get into like IT and cybersecurity management. Offensive Security Certified Practitioner, OSCP, is like the gold standard if you ever want to get into like offensive cyber, hacking, pen testing in general. That's one that's really respected by the community is OSCP. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, those are a good way to get into it. Those certifications are what recruiters are looking for. If you want to actually like impress people when you get to the job and get hired, that's where like doing CTFs in your free time and really being good at the stuff and being able to talk to different like frameworks, like understanding like life cycle and talking about persistence and like listening to different podcasts and knowing some of like, you know, following people on Twitter from the industry who have like good commentary that you talk about at work the next day. That's like where it really impresses people. But to get your foot in the door, certifications are where it at.
I got a question. Well, all right, this one's from Kyle again. Kyle says, Josh, please ask them about LPIC. What is that?
Yeah. So LPIC is stuff that is like to Linux administration, and these are awesome. I think they are kind of much more granular and much more detailed as to this is the specific thing that I want to do. Okay, sure, I am a Linux system administrator. What does that mean? Normally it means I do everything. I handle printers, I handle network connectivity, I handle user accounts, etc., etc. I spin up all the services between our website, between our email server, etc. So anything that you can tackle and kind of encompass in one aspect of Linux is great, and I think that LPIC does that well. I've seen a lot of those floating around on LinkedIn. And again, you have to take certificates with a grain of salt. Because sure, you've got this piece of paper that says you can do something, but whether or not you can actually do it is the most important thing. I think really being on the keyboard and being technical is where it's at.
What else we got?
I got
security clearance to work as a network engineer. Mostly if you want to go work for the government, you'll need a security clearance. If you want to do that kind of stuff.
Short answer, yes.
Well, I mean, most of the industry is in the private sector, and you probably don't need a security clearance as long as you can pass a background check. So as long as you don't have like really like a lot of outstanding debt and stuff, you'll probably be fine, or felony. Cybersecurity is definitely in need of people to answer Sarah.
There's a website.
Oh, there's a question for Josh on there. Favorite stack and why? Oh, you're answering.
Yeah, I'm just answering in chat. Like, I don't have a favorite stack. My stack is whatever gets the job done. Coding and programming to me is a tool in my toolbox. So if I want to make a game, I'll pull out the knowledge from object-oriented stuff to make a game. If I want to make a website, I'll do that. If I want to do a WordPress or e-commerce, I'll pull out the PHP. Like, I don't care. It's just whatever task I want to do, whatever the result is I want, is whatever stack is my favorite at the time because I have to learn it. Like, I don't care about... I just don't care enough about a stack. I'm more about like results. I don't know. I'm just language agnostic, I suppose. People are like, language agnostic. What does that mean? Like, it just means results oriented. But I guess.
Yeah, that's better.
To answer Craig's question, a lot of people in the dev community say they aren't interested in pursuing cybersecurity because it's less pay. Honestly, both industries have equal pay when you're talking about the people who are in like the elite end. Like, people who really do well and are very proficient. There's a lot of web devs who make really, don't make a lot of money, and there's a lot of cybersecurity people who make a lot of money. But on the flip side, there are a lot of people who make a stupid amount of money in both fields. Just depends how good you are and how much, time and effort you're willing to put into being proficient at your trade.
I would kind of tag team that question with Josh, because I think you have experience in that web dev side, because I haven't recently, like before, I hadn't seen salaries and numbers for a web dev position that aren't like ungodly, holy crap, like I have money coming out every single ligament. But recently, some stuff on your channel, I've seen web dev, and I've seen consistently six-figure stuff in cybersecurity. What is the norm, Josh, even in your eyes, of web dev?
All right, so it starts off. You're going to start at about 45 to 55K. A couple years later, you're going to be about 80K, and a couple years later, you're going to be about 95 to 100K. If you're a senior front end, specifically, you're going to be about 115, 120. Your senior back end, you're going to be about 160, like senior, like 11 years, and then full stack, you'll probably be in the 150s. If you're CTO, obviously, you'll be in like the 200. Which the difference between CTO and like full stack dev is just the management ability. I mean, but it goes pretty high. But I would say very rarely does it ever reach like 180. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. See, I don't normally see in the 40-50 range for InfoSec. I think starting is normally 70 to 80, but I haven't seen and that this is just my visibility, senior stuff that's up to like 160 and 180. Yeah, I'm sure there is that stuff out there.
You'll see it for the antiquated languages like Ruby on Rails. Like no one wants to do Ruby on Rails, and therefore those companies have to up their pay range because people are giving up what's hot and potentially their future to do some legacy stuff. Like there's the procedural languages like Cobalt and Fortran and that kind of stuff where people get paid even more, like in the 200s, just because no one knows it and there's no sense in learning it. The only reason they're around is just to keep these legacy companies and their legacy stuff alive, because it's cheaper for the company to just pay you a ridiculous salary than to redo their entire application. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Which is a huge pet peeve in our industry, because when you have all this old stuff laying around that's not built securely, like especially banks use Cobalt a lot, and there's a lot of Cobalt that's not documented anymore and not well known, so people are making kludgy solutions that ends up in insecure code that is exploitable. When you're talking about a bank with insecure code, you're talking about a bad day if something happens.
So we got another question. Barrier to entry for web dev versus cybersecurity. Like what? Well, I think to do cybersecurity, you probably have to know at least a little web dev just to do the web dev. Really? Like you have to know how backend stuff works a little bit, right?
I mean, cybersecurity is in so many different fields. There's so many niches to cybersecurity. I've done web security pen testing, but in the last year, I can say I've honestly not touched it at all. And most of the guys who work for me have not touched it at all ever. There's just so many facets to network security. Like you have guys who only look at network stuff, so looking at how traffic is moving throughout the network and where things are talking to and ports and protocols and such. You have people who only look at forensics, who are doing incident response and going through infected computers and looking for persistence mechanisms, looking for malicious processes, looking for reverse engineering binary applications to see, I can figure out where the command and control structure for this piece of malware is reaching out to, so I know where to put my firewall blocks. You have people who are looking just purely at lots of data, so event logs and stuff that get sent to a SIM, which is where you can where an enterprise security product, you collect all of the event logs from multiple computers, so you have them in a consolidated space. Even on the CTF side, cryptography and stuff, you don't
It's just huge.
There's a lot of that you can work 20 years in the industry and know nothing about another field inside of cyber.
So I have 2 questions. Something that I've kind of wanted to ask. I'll ask the one. Okay, so let's say I want to do cybersecurity, but I want to mess with someone's hardware cybersecurity, their hardware. Let's say there's a manufacturing line for something, and I want to hack into whatever those machine automation things are. What do I need to know to do that? If I want to shut down their line.
Industrial control system hacking. There's a whole thing. So that's what they're called, ICS systems, ICS SCADA systems. Usually they are on a segregated network, but sometimes they're connected to the network as well. So your first attack vector to get into it is going to be, you're going to send phishing emails out to everybody in the company. And you're hoping that somebody's going to click on one. You make it look like a malicious Word document with a macro embedded in it that's hey, you guys owe us this money for this custodian service. Or if you know a little more about the company, what companies they contract with, you'll be hey, we need you to look at this document, or this is a new process, or something that looks enticing enough for them. They click it, you compromise a workstation. From the workstation, you move on to the servers, you move to the main controllers, you move to whatever you need to. And then once you have a good foothold on the network and persistence, you then see, hey, can I get over to the engineering network? Can I move over to the production network? And then there's usually you have human-machine interfaces, you have friends, you have your controllers inside of ICS SCADA networks, and you try to basically keep moving around the network without getting caught until you can actually get to a computer that then you can compromise the, let's say you're talking about somebody who's making, chocolate. And they have a giant temperature sensor on their chocolate vat. But then let's say you fake the sensor values so that it keeps adding more heat until the system breaks. The chocolate's supposed to stay at 100 degrees. You tell the computer that, the chocolate's too cold, so it adds more heat, and you keep doing that until the sensor breaks, and the whole thing just catches on fire and causes a warehouse fire.
Okay.
That's an example.
Yeah, so that was a good example. I never really thought, like, that's what I wanted. Like, how do you start? You get the phishing email, you get on their network, and then you move computer to computer until you find that software, and then you basically put false data in that software to break the machines. That's cool.
When people always say, like, pivoting or, like, lateral movement, that's totally what that means. Getting that initial foothold and then moving laterally, right, from one machine to the other intranet or a company or organization with local area networks. So easier said than done, right? We can talk about it all day, but you need to get on Keeper to do that.
What are some other like common attacks to get a foothold besides phishing emails?
See, it's funny because I go back to the web dev stuff. I go back to the web attacks. I think if almost every company, right, almost literally every organization is going to have a public-facing website, and that might have those things, maybe as old as SQL injection, maybe local file inclusion, maybe it tries to check the availability of another server in the local area network just as a convenience, and you can do some command injection and run your own code in that. So I think that, personally, I think the web front end is one of the most vulnerable and at least accessible initial footholds. And you'll see that a lot on Hack the Box, and I think a lot of people in the chat are kind of mentioning those. Good practice and entry points.
Okay.
Definitely web is a huge vulnerability if they have the networks connected. Most places are moving towards where they put their web servers stuff into a demilitarized zone that is off of the network, that is like all the users and all the and all the financing. Some networks do have the networks combined, but it is becoming harder to find networks because people are following better practices. And there's a lot of compliance standards now and like frameworks and evaluations, and you have to get audits done, and they'll basically call you out for that kind of stuff, having, web server. And so it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to like get attacks where you're trying to get people to transfer money to you, to steal and extort people, web might not be the way to get in. Phishing might be the way to get in. Attacks. The coolest attack I've ever heard of was they really wanted to get into this certain defense contractor, and they basically hacked the Chinese restaurant next door and replaced the menu of like the lunch place with a malicious PDF that still had the menu on it. So literally everybody from that defense contract right around lunchtime was downloading the PDF and infected a whole bunch of computers. So that's something like a watering hole attack.
That's pretty shady stuff. I like it. It's creative. It's like when you see it on the movies and you just see them just like mashing their face on the keyboard. Like what you always kind of wonder what they're actually doing, and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Movies romanticize it.
What is it? Mr. Robot does.
Mr. Robot does a great job. Audience likes that show, but I love it.
Let's see. There's one. How good of a computer do you need for OSCP?
Something that runs Linux. Like you don't need anything
like
crazy.
Maybe 4 gigs of RAM and a 20 gigabyte hard drive.
Yeah.
All right.
I saw someone asking earlier, Kali Linux versus Parrot OS. I run Ubuntu and install all my stuff personally. But Kali is good, in my opinion. You used Parrot before, right?
I used Parrot in a VM for like one stream that we did just to try it. Kali, so many more people use Kali, and Offensive Security does such a good job of maintaining Kali that it's never going to lose its traction.
To explain, Josh, I'm sorry, you look confused. Do you know what Kali Linux and Parrot OS are?
I'm not allowed to say because I'm supposed to be a good web dev, so I'm just gonna nod. No, I don't. I've used Linux. Like I can use Linux. I can set up my own servers and stuff, but like I've never used those.
No, Linux comes in lots of different distributions and like flavors. Renditions of how the software and the tool can be packaged.
I've only used CentOS before.
Cool.
That's it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's totally for enterprise, like setting up infrastructure and servers and stuff.
Complete pause, talking back to certifications. Red Hat Certified System Administrator, very cert. Speaking of CentOS and Red Hat are the same kind of. Red Hat's the corporate version of it. Anyway, continue yours.
Sorry, for those that don't know, Linux and Parrot OS are flavors and distributions of Linux that are like custom built for penetration testing, so it comes pre-installed with a lot of security tools, like hacking utilities and stuff like that. So it's often a Swift army, like a Swiss army. Oh, this has everything that I could ever want, so I'll carry this with me on missions or deployments or whatever job that you do. Yeah.
One question I had was, Julian, you said you hired people before. John, have you hired people before?
I'm not that cool, no.
Okay, what are some questions that you would ask? If you were going to hire someone for cybersecurity, let's just say they're coming from web dev background, what would you expect them to know, bare minimum, interview question? No portfolio review, just interview questions. I know it's hard to do like a whiteboard type deal with like cybersecurity, so I imagine there's something technical you could ask.
So usually, I mean, like, you'll have your like low tier questions where you just kind of get it out of the way. I like to do a lot of like, let's say like event scenario walkthroughs. So like, let's say we pretend we're on a enterprise network with normal security appliances. So you have some kind of antivirus, you have like a centralized antivirus source, basically your SIM. So like if something does alert, it's going to pop to the SIM. You have some kind of network security stack, so you can like go through PCAP, which is basically saved network traffic. So like a lot of companies should and do, they will basically, every single computer in the building goes through a few external web connections. So you'll basically have taps on those connections, and it'll store every packet that goes across the wire into a file. And there's like Security Onion and Moloch and Blue Coat are examples of products that store that PCAP and allow you to parse through it. But basically, the question is, we get infected. We know there is a compromise on the network, so what do you do? Like, what do? Do you call your boss? Do you try to hide it? Do you remove the machine off the network? Just like, what's your initial instinct? And there's no right or wrong answer, because once you get on the job, you'll learn how each company or individual group likes to do their process. But it's more of like hearing what their thought process is and how they think about things is what I'm interested when I'm like, asking those kind of questions. Because you can tell a lot about a person when they just kind of have to wing it. And some of it is rehearsed, especially if they've done it a lot before. But if they're just like really passionate about the subject, they'll kind of like just go off on tangents about like, if this happens, then I would do this. If this happens, this. Like, if it looks like commodity malware, I'm just going to wipe the box and not worry about it. I'll check the other boxes for the same malware. If it's something really hidden, and I also find like persistence mechanisms hidden in registry, then I might not remove the malware right along. I might just like try to target in and see if like I see communication going back and forth between that, maybe the command and control and the workstation, and see if they're infected like other spots on the network. And there is no right answer, so it's just interesting to see how people kind of progress. And then you ask what the 8 layers of the OSI model are, and hopefully they correct.
You say 8?
Yeah.
A lot of people saying they're not getting notifications for the stream. Rip.
Oh no.
It looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, if you guys are here and you enjoy the stream, if you learned a little bit, so if you like the Chocolate Factory story, that was my favorite so far. Please tell more stories like that, because that's interesting. I always wonder how this stuff works, because I like machine automation. That's what I did. I did PLC, programming, machine automation. My final project was to create a manufacturing line with conveyor belts and barcode sensors and color sensors and all this stuff, and I had to deliver dog food to replace all the forklift drivers, and I had to present it to that company, and they were like, yeah, all of our forklift drivers are union, so if we fire them, we're going to get sued to shit. And so they're like, yeah, good idea though, Josh. Anyways, that was really exciting. I we're probably robotics and stuff too, but yeah.
So we can talk about, let's say, I can talk about boats and I can talk about cars. Let's take boats, for example. Booz Allen Hamilton was doing this thing for a while called Trudy. It was like tactical, reconfigurable, underway information display or something. It was basically a full ship mock-up, and it had GPS, AIS, XM radio for weather. It had an autopilot on it. It had a gyro compass on there, and the basic idea was could someone hack into a boat and take control of it and maybe crash it and cause an oil spill? which would leave the companies subject to a lot of liability and ruin their product and also hurt their brand name. And it was like, so they have an email server on board. You compromise the email server, or you like get physical access and you plug into the CAN bus. And from either of those, or they have a web server on board, or they have satellite communications and that has a front end that's internet. And then you can use that to spearfish users on board. Those are some of your initial attack vectors. Once you get on board, you know everything's running over a controller area network via, like, let's say the NEMA 2000 protocol. So can we basically sniff like the command that's going to the auto, like the actual head unit with GPS, going down to the rudder and actually controlling the rudder when it's on autopilot and everybody's not paying attention. And if you see those messages on the CAN bus, can you just replay those messages a lot of time to make the ship, steer into shoal or into rocks or something? Or can you, let's say, use RF to like introduce error into the GPS and make the ship correct off course into, rocks or another ship or something? Or can you just actually hack into it and like tell the autopilot that it has bad data and that it needs to course correct?
All right, let me just freak everybody out with a question then. Is it possible to hack into like a commercial airliner and mess with that autopilot? Because that sounds super dangerous.
I think DHS put out a report, like Department of Homeland Security, that they were able to affect an aircraft, but I don't want to say too much.
Is there stuff on that on the interweb?
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of planes are offering Wi-Fi now for their customers, so that's being generated from that airplane. So I'm sure.
Now, hopefully, it is on a completely separate network, not touching anything. That is how it should be.
Yeah, I wonder that. I don't know. You mentioned boats, and I'm just like I was on an airplane, and I was just on my trip a few days ago, just thinking about that. But yeah.
Maybe just like you would hope that, big companies would keep their networks separate, but then you see things like Equifax. They stole a whole bunch of information from the American public, and the only reason they didn't get caught, or like the Equifax security team didn't notice all the stuff going on, was because they had an expired TLS cert, which is unfortunately more common than it should be. I think during government shutdown right now, there's like 100 government TLS certs that have expired because workers are furloughed.
Yeah, so let me just say real quick, because I was just asking about the airplanes. For the NSA, that's inevitably going to see this. I was just out of curiosity. Please don't put me on a list. Thank you. What other questions we got? Oh no, buffer overflow. Okay, I don't want to think about this anymore. You guys are gonna put me on a list. We'll stop talking about that.
Let's talk about web development so your entire crowd doesn't get too mad.
Yeah, drop some questions for web dev. John's web dev all day.
Someone asked about hardware knowledge, though. Do I do embedded security? I don't do that much. Julian does a lot.
I really like playing with microcontrollers and FPGAs and PLCs. If you have some specific questions, I don't think I can just offsec drama. Like, are you talking about like DerbyCon and stuff, or Cave Venom?
Oh, DerbyCon. Another conversation. Yeah. Someone's asking what air gapping.
Air gapping is where you take a computer network and you completely remove it from the internet. That way, there's no way to route traffic from. You have to physically be there to route traffic.
Wow. Okay. Let's see.
Someone leaked write-ups to the OSC box.
What's the PHP job ratio to Node.js jobs for the future? For the future, probably Node. PHP is still going to be around for a while though, just because so many people already use PHP. It's a good playful language, but obviously you can just have a single stack with JavaScript, and then you can do React and Node, and you don't really have to learn that much syntax. Just the different keywords. That's about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Node will take over.
Sean, talk to me about Flask.
Oh, so
why do you write stuff in Python?
Okay, sure, web dev stuff. Python is like my weapon. Need to do something or a task. Like my knee-jerk reaction is to use Python. I like to use Flask because it's the first thing I learned. It's a micro framework for creating websites. You can also do stuff like Django, or DJANGO. And that's going to be very similar to Ruby on Rails if you're using a web framework stuff. But I like to use Flask because it's very quick and easy, and I still get like fine-tuned, granular definition of it. Have you tinkered with Flask at all, Josh?
No, I started working through Treehouse's Python course, and we just did like dictionaries and whatever. And I did like all the like the fundamentals and syntax of Python, but I never actually did anything with it. I did only, well, let's see, what have I done? I messed around with an Instagram bot once. I messed around with like automate the boring stuff to like generate some like random words, but nothing like practical yet with Python. I should though. I think I really want to do something with like Raspberry Pis, but to be honest, I think I would lean more towards an Arduino, since you can, it's a little bit more physical. You can attach more stuff to the Arduino board. You can build your own drones. I think Arduino is C++, right? But isn't there a way to put Python on there?
Not on Arduinos.
Really?
I take that back. So Arduino is a huge framework of multiple boards. So the most common Arduino is an Arduino Uno, which is based on the ATmega 328, which is only basically going to take compiled C code. There are things like the ESP32, which you can program from Arduino that accept MicroPython and stuff. Before the question gets way too far up, somebody said, what is illegal, what's illegal in doing network security and hacking? Basically, if you have permission, so nothing about the act of malware, of like actually doing hacking is legal, but it matters on what you're doing it on. So if I do it on a company, or on a computer that I don't have prior authorization to do it on, that is illegal. If I use the same exploit on a computer that I own and I have permission to do it on, it is completely legal. There are places like Hack the Box, where they have a bunch of servers that are intended to be hacked, where it is completely legal to do so over the network. But if you are ever worried about it, set up virtual machines on your own computer. If you want to do it completely for free, you can set up VirtualBox. You can buy VMware workstation licenses on eBay for pretty cheap, or Amazon. It usually works a little bit better. But if you do that, then it will be completely not. I mean, obviously, this is not legal advice, but in general, if you have permission to do so, or it is your own stuff, then you should be.
I'll answer your question, 253. What's the best way to not get fired from your first dev job? Okay, so you probably want to do the work, number one. Probably, you need to get real good at alt-tabbing. That'd be my pro tip. Get real good at alt-tabbing between Facebook and work, and YouTube and work. I don't know. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you blow. I don't know. That's how you not get fired in corporate worlds these days. I would say, okay, here's my question for you, John. What's the future of web dev with Python?
What's the future of web dev with Python?
Yeah, because everything seems to be moving towards JavaScript, but Python's got Flask and Django, but that's it.
That's a hard question. So I think Python is in a losing battle. I don't think Python is ever meant to be or wants to be a solution for web development and web framework. I think JavaScript owns that game. Like they just have it. I know it's funny because Google had a recent conversation about wanting to create a new API to act like local files, like files that are local on your computer, and they want some sort of API access that allows your computer to work with files on a website all the time. So when you think of Google Docs, forgive me if this is seeming like a tangent, but I'll totally relate it at the end. I'll try to anyway. When you think of Google Docs, it asks permission to use one of your local files on your computer because you drag it in there and you work. What if Google had that Google Drive and Google Docs had that functionality always? It didn't have to ask, and it had persistent access to the files on your computer. Well, that could be a bad thing if some website or whatever other things use this API to do stuff in maybe change files to make them executable, binary access files that they shouldn't have seen before, like personal information, employee record, etc. There's been a little bit of a conversation of, will the browser step out of its sandbox and become more like a native application that would run on the desktop and the environment? I think from what I've seen in the security world and people that talk in the InfoSec community, we don't want that. Like, that is crossing the line. The browser needs to stay in the browser that it was originally born in. You don't get to play in the native land of whatever regular desktop applications. Right now, I think JavaScript is still within the cage. Python blurs the line because it allows you to be both kind of front-end-like and still back-end-like. But Python was never meant, or I don't believe should have any intent of being a web development solution. JavaScript has that playground and has that throne, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
I think I was just going to say I like Python syntax way more than JavaScript, and like I like the utility way more. Like, you can do stuff on your local machine, you can do web dev, you can do backend, you can do hardware. Like, it's just so, like, from that standpoint, that's like what I'm all about. Like, different use cases for when I need, and so having one single language solution, Python seems better than JavaScript, at least to me, because I'm just not, like, web dev is just meh.
And Python's pretty fast. I mean, it's not like C fast, but it's fast enough. Especially when you're writing, like, we've done a whole bunch of, like, breaking cryptography with Python and, like, breaking Enigma and, like, brute forcing stuff, and it's run plenty fast. Another thing I was going to bring up was from ShmooCon in the opening talk, they did a really good thing, and they brought up a tweet that the guy, if we can link it later, but it basically said, I was listening to the AWS reInvent conference, like the downloading the videos from there, and they were talking about so many new frameworks and new coding languages and new, like, everything. And that, as a cybersecurity person, should terrify us. Because, you know, who knows what secure coding looks like in Go, or looks like in this newest JavaScript framework. Or, like, people are building on stuff without understanding what's underneath. So this whole idea of, like, especially with, like, package managers and stuff, like, you pull a package that you're relying on, but underneath, and this has been done before, somebody has, like, basically got this whatever product that does, let's say, like, changes fonts or colors or does some kind of animation, and then later on they decide, okay, I'm just going to inject this piece of malware, and now I've infected 250,000, 500,000 websites that were all using my package. That's 12 layers deep, and you're not actually seeing it because you have a package that calls another package, which calls a package, which when you use your package manager, it just pulls them all.
Oh, you're talking about Ruby on Rails.
Among others.
I'm just joking, because Ruby on Rails is literally just a packet of gems.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Yeah. So there's one from Amity asked the question, what are the... Alright, so we already asked the question a little bit, but just like, in a few sentences, what are some good certifications to put on your resume? Because in web dev, certifications doesn't mean shit, it's about portfolio. But in security, certifications are plus, plus, plus. So what do you need?
In general, things like Security Plus, it really depends on what you're going. Respected certs are OSCP, CIS, CISM, Sec Plus, Net Plus, CCNA Security, ITIL Foundation, Red Hat System Administrator, any kind of HPSS certification.
From what I have seen, being in the job market recently, it sounds like Sec Plus and CEH and kind of those in that mental vicinity are just a stamp. Like, that's just, you just have to have one of those to be considered. The real, I think, value, comes from OSCP and some more CompTIA stuff. But Sec Plus and CEH, I think, I can't say are low level, low hanging. I feel like I want to say rite of passage, but I know that's not the right meaning at all. But it's
they're baseline knowledge that you need to. They're broad, especially if you're brand new doing this. I think you and me, after like slowly ramping up over the years, like take for granted the amount of knowledge we have absorbed from doing CTFs and just like weird pockets of information we've just stumbled upon. If you're brand new to it, it is basically acronym soup and just foreign language of what they're talking about when you're first getting into it.
So get one. Security Plus or Certified Ethical Hacker, and
A
then
plus.
What
I don't know.
what do you got to do for CCNA and Security Plus? Like, is it like a long test, like $100 to, like, what is it?
yeah,
Most of them are like proctored exams that are a couple hours. The only one that's really hard, which I see people mentioning, try harder. Try harder is the motto for OSCP. OSCP is a 48-hour exam. You spend the first 24 hours straight trying to hack into 5 boxes, and then you have the next 24 hours to write. I haven't taken it yet. I'm hoping to take it in the next. Roommate Caleb, who's not here right now, just took it, and it took him like 11 hours and minutes to finish the first part of the exam. 23 hours and 45 minutes to finish the first part of the exam. So he was just, and then it crashed for a couple hours, and then did it. That one's pretty hard.
So what can someone do today, like right now, after this live stream, to get started in cybersecurity? Easiest thing they could do from a web dev standpoint, I guess. Subscribe to John Hammond over there. Go to his channel, and then go to his Aaron Security website. That's what they keep changing the little picture in the background. I saw that, Julian. You changed the picture. That's their company they have, and he has his own cybersecurity company, and he has his own channel. So go if you want more like detailed answers than what I can give you. I'm just trying to showcase like different knowledge sets on my channel. But John is like, he walks you through different examples of hacks, basically, that he's found, how he did it, how long it took him, how he figured it out, hints and tips, all that stuff. So it's just John Hammond. Just go look at his channel.
John CTF walkthrough. So CTF is capture the flag, for those of you who know, are really good because he takes you through in a nice slow pace and like actually explains each of the concepts to you as he does them. He tries not to gloss over them. And you'll see like one exploit, which is, like he'll highlight each CTF challenge is revolving around one exploit, one narrow thing that you have to know some amount of knowledge that whoever, when they coded this system, either from the web dive side or the coding side or the IT side, they were not expecting this misconfiguration or this input. I said it already. And that is what we as information security professionals to hack into shit. Malcolm, what K Venom said directly beneath you is a great resource, overthewire.org. IPSEC, I saw his name floating around. He has a really good channel on YouTube.
You could go to Live Overflow. We forgot him. He does a bunch of stuff. Go to Live Overflow's channel. He's got a bunch of good stuff. We did that interview the other day, and John did the interview because people keep asking me about cybersecurity. I'm like, I don't know. But now I'll have some idea. I can just regurgitate what they said, basically. Craig hits me with the 5. Thanks, Craig. You need that 5. Please, I'm going to refund this to you. Stop.
What do I define low-hanging fruit splash? I saw you throw this question around. Goodness. I totally oversaturate that statement. I say it way too often.
What's a good example? An input that doesn't check for length. Actually, talk about Heartbleed. I would consider that low-hanging fruit, wouldn't you?
The real attack, I would not.
But the trivial version, the
yeah,
explanation of Heartbleed.
Okay, so for us to go on a tangent. Heartbleed. This is a vulnerability and an exploit. It was found in 2014. An issue with SSL, or the secure sockets layer, and how websites try and keep themselves secure and encrypted and cryptographically safe. The certificate, that green lock symbol on your web browser, that means it's secure, right? But in 2014, they found Heartbleed. The attack is a little bit... There are hoops and hurdles to jump through when doing it on the keyboard, doing it for real, but when you mentally look at it in a kind of distilled format, it's easy to wrap your mind around. You are a person talking to a computer, the server, and you say, server, I want you to tell me if you're there. And the server says, yeah, I'm here. What's up? What do you need? You say, I want to know hat. Tell me 3 letters for hat. And then we'll say, okay, hat, 3 letters. Here it is. Here's the word hat. Let's say I want to know the word apple, or 2 letters. It says, okay, you want to know the word apple, 2 letters. Let me tell you app, AP. Let's say, okay, I want to know the word subscribe 2,000 letters, and it says, oh, how about I'm going to tell you, subscribe, John Hammond's password, log in with it, blah, like, you leak out total memory of the server. You can find how the certificate and the private keys are generated from that encryption suite servers. That is Heartbleed and just saying, I want more data than you would expect me to have returned back. Subscribe is not 2,000 letters long, so you're going to get returned a lot more information. Maybe, I don't consider that low-hanging fruit. That was a total tangent. I see low-hanging fruit as, like, check robots.txt on a website, maybe. When I say low-hanging fruit as an action or thing that you need to do to...
What's robots?
Okay. Sorry. Sometimes websites are crawled by certain search engines, like Google and Bing and Yahoo. But sometimes they have files and pages that they don't want Google and Yahoo to particularly cache or keep track of. So they hide, or they have an entry in a lookup table, these locations they're trying to hide with a robots.txt file. And inside this file, in the web root of the directory, they're still publicly visible. Anyone can still access that file, see what Google's trying to hide, or you're trying to hide from. So I see that as like, okay, just check this, see if it's there, and if it's there, you're good. Oh no, Josh left us alone. What do we do? You gotta roll. Cool.
Oh, yeah, I muted myself. My girlfriend came home, guys, so I had to go tell her not to get mad at the kitchen because it's messy. Yeah, it's girlfriend problems. What did I miss?
How we doing? How are we feeling? We want to wrap it up? You got a couple more, you think?
Oh, we got a couple more. We can hang out for an hour. We got like 8-9 more minutes.
Did I answer your question, Captain Splash? I'm sorry. My definition of low-hanging fruit, I know that was super scattered. It made no sense, but do you have an example, at least?
I will go off on another tangent, John.
Okay.
The most beautiful line of code ever written, which is also something that, let's say, after you exploit a web server, you might put into the terminal if you're feeling malicious.
Talking about a fork bomb?
I mean, like that painting that I did in the back, right?
Yes.
That way. So a fork bomb. Want to talk about that and how beautiful it is?
Am I talking too much, Josh? How we doing?
Everybody loves your voice. You
No,
can't.
you're good, dude. Everyone says that your voice doesn't match your face. That's literally what I've gotten from like 10 people. You should just narrate movies. You should just... Can you just do Optimus Prime like in a world? Like, I bet you could, and it would probably be pretty good.
So, a thing that you can do when you are on a computer is start a process that starts another process that starts another process, etc. And will recursively grow and expand and totally hog all the system resources and run out of memory and everything just shuts down and dies. You can do that even as just a regular user, right? You don't have to go through any privilege escalation or be the root super user administrator account. If you just want to, okay, I'm on a box, I'm going to own it, I'm going to bring it down, let's DOS or denial of service this machine. So creating a program that does that is called a fork, or it forks itself. So you have a fork bomb. It's a program that repeatedly forks and exhausts all the resources. On Linux, in the bash terminal, the syntax for it looks so peculiar. It's kind of artsy and magnificent. So that's a bash bomb, and you can see it in our cheesy picture in the back. If that computer, that system doesn't have any protections to monitor how much memory it's using or allow all of those repeated forks, it might go down. So that's something you can just
read what Cave Venom said in your best optimum.
I have to save the audience for something that I stream. Bring the people home.
Caleb and I said that one day we're going to end up getting drunk in D.C. and ending up at a tattoo shop and getting a fork palm tattooed on us somewhere.
If any of you listeners are in the DC area,
hit us up. We'll go grab drinks and talk about nerd stuff.
Cool. Any other? Let's see. Any other?
Hit us with questions. What do you guys got?
Yeah. Any other questions I'm missing? Do you know any cybersecurity boot camps? I don't. All I know is that Austin, the CEO of Lambda, said that they were gonna launch a cybersecurity part this year, but I'm not totally sure when. John, do you have we can do some shout outs here and then we'll head out. Do you have Instagram or anything, Julian? You don't have a YouTube, but you need to get one. Do you have
follow us on Twitter? My handle is Jules J Blanco. You can follow our podcast on iTunes, AaronSecurity.com if you want to read our blog. John Hammond, join the Discord. We're both mods on it. You can hang out with us on there, play some CTFs and stuff.
We are anxiously awaiting the Fireshell CTF that's starting the end of this month. So if you want to hang out and party, join the Discord server.
Yeah. You can post your invite and you can go check out all their stuff. Let's see. Oh, this is a good question from Eric. What are your thoughts on your own personal computer at home? My question is, so what are your thoughts on security on your personal computer at home? And then how easy would it be to turn on someone's webcam without them knowing?
Well, luckily, pretty sure there's a standard that every webcam has a light that's built into it, so you can actually see it turn on, and that's not bypassable unless you have access to the computer. In terms of how easy it is, it's a built-in module in Metasploit to turn on webcams or take webcam snapshots. So if you can get somebody to download a link or go to a malicious website or download a cracked copy of a program, there is many ways. Once you have initial access onto the box, if you can get a interpreter shell, there's a built-in module to turn on the webcam.
Interesting. What's the name of the podcast?
Aaron Security.
It's on the TV in the background behind his head.
Yeah, it's just really bad quality. We didn't get it.
This kind of thing is still...
It's in infancy.
Yeah, I want to repeatedly throw disclaimers on it because it's something that I am pleased with or proud of yet. I want to keep working on it, keep building through it. But maybe we'll transition from, no longer be John Hammond, but a little bigger, broader Aaron Security.
Give us your feedback if you listen to it or read the blogs. Call us out on all the mistakes we make and what you'd like to hear and how we can make it better, because I'm kind of new to it. I can keep bringing Twitter.
Did I participate in the CDX conference? Yes. I also participated in NCX, their new NSA cyber exercise. I can talk about that if you'd like, but it's very good and very cool, and I like it a lot.
Don't store the password, store the hash, Freddie. Even that's not perfect.
I don't really know. What should I refer for async await and API calls is in JS? I don't know. Just use Ajax and jQuery. Call it a day, dude. Use Axios. Call it a day.
I agree with that.
Why you make it more advanced than you need to. You got your gets and your puts and your just keep it simple, man. Async await is confusing to me, and I read 3 Medium articles on it. I still have no idea what it does. Just use Axios. Call it a day.
Yeah, I use Axios and some recent web dev stuff that I've been doing, and I only know it through that. But it does keep it easy to get input and JSON objects flying back and forth.
Okay, cool. So I'll shout out some people in the chat, and then we'll head out. We got Robert Thomas, Kevin, Parsley, Freddie, Aditya, Craig. Thanks for the 5 again. Chad, you guys can shout some people out. I know you got people in your Discord here.
Yeah, Cape Venom came to hang out. I know I saw Soul, some hard hitters that are pretty prevalent in the party. So thank you guys for coming to hang out. It's good to see you. I'm glad we were able to hang.
I hope that they've been helpful and they've answered your security info questions. If not, just go watch the recorded version of this. and you can get, I don't know, I tried to ask almost every single thing I could think of about how to get you started. We need more cybersecurity streams? Okay, well, we'll just get John more. We'll get John on more. Go subscribe to his channel.
Something that I want to do with you, Josh, is some like stuff. Like you're on the keyboard, I'm on the keyboard, we'll do screen cap, not just us talking. Cool with that sometime?
Yeah, yep. I'm gonna flop around like fish out of water. So let's do it.
We'll share. You throw me in the lion's den, and I'll throw you in. Be good.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. All right, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for hanging.
Ciao, guys.